We have topics we have to cover that are relevant to what's been happening lately in movies, and I'm hoping, I know you have some ideas and opinions, Charles, but I'm hoping that you can chime in as well.
Well,
Mr. Douglas, so the first topic, the Tupac movie didn't do too well this weekend. Basically, and I was expecting a big drop off from the first week because the basically the audience feedback and the initial reviews. It opened at 30. Well, they tried to make it 30. It was 27 million for the weekend, and then it got to 30 by day 5. And but for the following this current weekend, the second weekend, 77% drop off from 27 opening to I think about $5.5 million this weekend. So, and it's up against the summer movies now. Transformers 5 also opened this week. So you have I think it's Transformers and Cars, and then Wonder Woman, and then Tupac is number 5 for the weekend. So to be expected, but it raises some questions. I mean, but first, your feedback on the box office performance.
well, I'm going to speak on something I haven't seen. So, and the only thing I can say, a lot of times, that 27 million you mentioned, that looked good, but if the word of mouth doesn't soup it up, it's over. It's finished. Good is good, bad is bad. When we went to see Get Out, I told you what my reaction was. I said, this is going to be a blockbuster.
Right.
And I said, if this doesn't make 100 million or more, I'll be surprised. But there was something about the ancillary talk around Tupac. Tupac didn't sound too enthusiastic.
Right. Yeah, it didn't have the same buzz that
and
Tupac
someone, because we do look at the comments, and we look at the comments not to see who's attacking us, but I learned from the viewers, because anyone, as I told Barry the other night, anyone can be a damn critic. As someone says, one thing everyone has is opinions, just like what's on the back of you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But criticism that I offer is not to condemn something or to knock it, to hurt it. It's just observations and your perspective. Yes, we would love to see films about us be successful, but if they're not entertaining, they're not good, hey, people got to spend their money. And we were just on 42nd Street. And one of the things we mentioned is the fact that when you want to take a family out, hey, give them their money's worth, because it costs a lot of money to take a family out.
Right. People will go back and back and around. But I think it's it's an opportunity to have a bigger discussion, in the sense that, and this is something we've talked about off camera quite a bit, not within the context of the podcast. So we see a lot of the biopics being made about black historical figures, musicians. We'll talk about Thurgood in a minute. So the argument when they were on the promotional tour for Tupac was, the producer's first time making a film, he said, look, I did the best I could do to wrangle this together. It's like almost an impossible feat to get the music rights, to make a property that everybody's going to agree with, find an actor who really physically resembles Tupac, and then tell a story within 2 hours and 20 minutes that's going to sort of encapsulate this very complex figure. Now, but it falls short, because we've been exposed to Ray, we've been exposed to Malcolm X, we've seen so many people get biopics. And when I was on the radio, I said, well, this one, it's a little above a TV movie. It's not as bad as the Aaliyah, it's not as bad as Nina, but it's nowhere near what Ray was, is nowhere near what Straight Outta Compton is. But then the question is, how much of a pass do you give it? Where in the value system is it more important that we as black people get the chance to produce and tell our own stories, or would it have been better if some white folks that had a little more experience making films told the story?
Question real quick. Now you mentioned Straight Outta Compton, because I was going to bring that up. It did very well. How did this compare to Notorious?
In terms of box office, well, it's two different eras. It did better than Notorious because it didn't. Notorious 10, 15 years ago, I think it opened at like maybe 12 million. I have to look at it.
Okay, so both of them, so the big, both, and these are icons in the rap world. Both Notorious and Notorious B.I.G. and Tupac are the icons of the rap world. These are the you could argue the two guys that are most famous in the rap world, and their biopics. Yeah, and their biopics. Now, I didn't see the Tupac movie, but I did see Notorious, and I thought it was okay. I didn't find anything illuminating about it. I remember Notorious big. In fact, it evaporated, as far as I'm concerned, in my head. I appreciate Biggie being the talent that he was. I can see that. I can hear it. I never really bought any of his music, but I have listened to it. Tupac, I thought, was incredibly talented, and not just as a rapper, but this guy was an actor of intensity. This guy was going to have a career that was going to looked like he was going to have a career that was going to be awesome.
Reminds you of what happened with James Dean.
Yes, yes, that's a good one. Yes, it does remind you of Dean. They had this meteoric rise, and all of a sudden you're going, yeah, because.
What I want to chime in is what I think what happens is, a lot of times when we get these biopics or historically based dramas, if the distance is far enough, well, a lot of people are dead, and maybe the estate issues aren't of the magnitude that they could be. This is a little more recent. And just look at Jada Pinkett's reaction, you know what I mean? And a lot of times you're afraid to step on toes. It's like when someone writes a biography book, and you want to find out if they're going to talk about the love affairs they had and whatnot. I remember, for example, what was her name? Joan Collins, when she first put her book out, and this thing she had with Harry Belafonte. I'm ready to go get the book. Next thing I know, they were pulling that bad boy off the market because people have issues. Remember when Barbara Walters' book came out, and the affair she said she had with
Richard Pryor?
No,
Brooks.
Brooks. Yeah.
So
I think what happened, a lot of people were disappointed with Tupac, where from what I read, people couldn't. The characters were not engrossing. It seems so. It's vapid,
It was just bad screenwriting.
Yes.
I wouldn't put it past. If it's not on the page, it's not on the stage, and it was basically, my understanding is that they spent a year with Singleton, and he had his ideas about how to tell the story, and when he walked away, they literally were left like maybe with 2 months to put the project into play before the music rights went away. So they went back to an earlier draft, which might not have been perfect, and they just started shooting, and you can see it in the film. Like, some scenes are great, like everybody's hitting on all cylinders, but there's no pacing within the story to make you feel like, what was this about? And even like at the end, everybody knows what happens at the end of the story. There's no real foreshadowing or ominous thing. And the key to any biopic, when you look at them, is like, well, what did this person's life amount to? And even the coda for it was like, he sold all these records. It wasn't really about what he contributed to the culture. So it was disappointing, but not too much but you talk about timing. Ray had the benefit, it took years to get made, had the benefit of a great performance by Jamie Foxx, but I think that movie gets completely lost had Ray Charles not died earlier that year.
Also, Ray had a lot to do with that movie. Ray was in.
Yes.
Jamie spent almost a year with Ray Fox. Ray
Charles.
Charles. Jamie spent a year, and Ray was on board. So that kind of helps. Ray showed Jamie how to play piano. Talked about it. Ray opened his life up, and I think that helped. Then you also had a director, a guy, Taylor Hackford.
Yes.
A guy who cares about what he's doing, and that one of the biographies, not to get off the track, but it's a biographical movie they've been trying to make for years, and it's the Dean Martin biography from the Neil Torshis, I think the guy who wrote the biography. It's a great book. And they've been chopping at the bit, but they don't know, sometimes when you're doing a biography, they don't know where or how to attack it. And that's very important, of what you're attacking. Now, with Tupac, the music is very important. I didn't see the movie, you saw it, but the music right now, since it is still contemporary, is very important. You have the music. Look at John Ridley just did this thing with Jimi Hendrix with Andre.
Yeah.
You know,
Benjamin.
And basically went straight to video.
Well, they couldn't clear any of the music rights. The only songs they could use were songs that were covers.
Right. To do Jimi Hendrix, I think you need the music rights.
Right. So all that was on the table. They had all the right ingredients, but somehow it didn't come out the way it could have or should have. But I think it was.
I'm going to tell you, I have not seen it. Once again, I'm speaking off the top of my head, haven't been in that position. With my other partner, we used to rewrite movies, do ghost movies and rewrite. Sometimes these movies get pushed, and they're not ready. But yet still, the money's there. They want to push it, and they push, and it's not ready.
Who's that other partner?
Franklin and Jai. We used to do ghosts a few movies, and I used to tell my partner here, we would say, if we used to get these movies, they'd call on us, and they would have these bad movies, And I used to say, if they give us a week or 2 weeks, because we got a representation of doing, rewrites in 2 weeks, which is not enough. And I used to tell Franklin now, we used to say, if you got a really, really bad movie, and you got 2 weeks, we could take a really out.
Can you mention can you mention some of the movies you worked on, with Franklin?
We did Living Lodge. We did a couple of the house party movies. We did the movie that Kid and Play did. What's the name of that movie? I can't think of the name of it.
Class Act? Or?
Class Act, yes, Class Act. That's it. We did that.
Okay, so now got you to blame now. All right, can I get those 2 hours back?
Well, if you guys didn't work on it, it would have been Classless Act, right?
Right. And I mean, when I sat there and argued with these people, I said, give us a month. Give us a month and a half, 2 months. Well, we're getting ready to shoot. Well, what the hell, I mean, I've walked out on jobs to turn down quite a bit of money. At one point, I got to the point I said, Franklin, I'm not going to do this. I said, there's something here, and we can do something with it. There's something here. If they gave us the time, we can do. I saw it. I could see it. I said, you can do. I even pitched it to him. In fact, there was one movie, I can't remember the movie. We pitched. I told him the guy. They gave us the script. I came to the guy. We met. I said, if we do this, that, and do that, and he go, wow, that's great. Well, we got 2 weeks. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
So just for the fact thing, so Notorious ended up with 30 million overall, and it opened at 20, and then it ended up with 30. So it's pretty much the same.
But Notorious cost how much to make though?
Probably half as much money to make, about 15 or 20 maximum. But yeah, they paid retail first time making a film and a ton of music rights. It's kind of hard.
Here's something. Barry mentioned Taylor Hackford.
Yeah, that's where I want to go. Yeah.
Okay. And in the earlier segment, you used the N word.
Yeah.
Okay. So recently, the N word with Bill Maher has been an issue, and then we'd go back and forth on, is it really important with a lot of the films that are supposed to be about us? Is it mandatory that we do the Spike Lee thing where it should have a black director? What are your opinions on that?
No, I don't think it's mandatory. I told you the great story. I met with Attila, Malcolm X's daughter. She wanted Norman Jewison, okay, to direct that the movie of About a Father. She was adamant about it, but in order to get it done, Spike, got his way and got the movie. But she thought that, and I thought Norman Jewison would have done a decent job, a good job,
Well, he had done Soldier Story.
Soldier Story, Heat of the Night, but he bowed out gracefully because of the pressure that's put down on Spike. Oh, a black man's got to do it. I don't believe in that. Because if you do it that way, then what if a black man wants to direct Beethoven? You can't direct Beethoven. You're a black guy. That's what I'm saying.
But Beethoven would be okay though.
What? Because it's black.
Because he's black.
Yeah.
Beethoven is black people.
So what I'm just saying is, if you close the door over here, what to stop them to closing the door over there? You know.
Yeah, but I mean, but the double standard already exists.
That's true.
So
But somebody's gotta
why can't in order to if a black actor can only be considered to play roles that are historically written as black, then how do we get a foot in? How do we advance in terms of getting good? Like I have no question that if you allow Benny Boom the opportunity to make more movies, he could be one of the great directors, But it's practice makes perfect. But if you only get one shot, the movie fails, or the only time that you get called in for a meeting is to discuss some black version. I mean, like, it's great we have black superhero movies, but the only time that they were calling in Ryan Coogler was for Black Panther. They weren't calling him for Iron Man, to my knowledge. It's sort of like Hollywood will use black directors as cover. So why can't we insist on telling our own stories and not risking the fact that if it doesn't come out well, now here's another shot where white folks have messed it up.
Who did 44? I mean 34. 32. I'm sorry.
42.
Brian Hegelin.
Okay. And he did a wonderful job. Spike wanted to do it. He wanted to do the Jackie Robinson story. But one of the problems I remember meeting with the guys over at Warner Brothers when he wanted like $100 million. He wanted to rebuild Ebbets Field. He said, "We're not going to spend $100 million and rebuild no Ebbets Field." And anyway, so the project was put aside, and this guy comes along and does a really excellent job on this movie. Now, we'll have to say this. My brother here will tell you, we go see the movie, and the audience is predominantly white.
Mm-hmm.
And they made its money because that movie has crossed over, but basically predominantly white. The Magic Johnson Theater carried the movie for about a week or 2 weeks, man. We had to go downtown to see the daggone movie. You got to hold on to the movie, man. Bring the kids to the theater. You got to start somewhere. Your argument is legitimate.
Yeah, but that movie was more about Branch Rickey than it was about Jackie Robinson.
Well, yes and no. It's still that when people talk about, you mention anybody see that movie, and they're going to say that's the Jackie Robinson movie. They're not going to say it's the Branch Rickey movie. Okay? They're not going to say that. Yes, Branch Rickey had a large part in it, and deservedly so, because what you just asked me, you need a guy like that to take the chance. Taylor Hackford did that in Officer and a Gentleman. He cast Lou Gossett when that was written for a white guy. Okay? So Taylor Hackford said, you know what? Okay. Lou Gossett said, you know what? You can have the role. Let's make this. So you need a Branch Rickey in the business of the movies that goes along and says, you know what? We can cast this, that, and the other. We can do this, that, and the other.
I just don't want a white guy telling Tupac's story. I mean,
Okay, that's fair. That's fair, but doesn't mean that he couldn't do a good job.
Well,
Look at the white guy who did the movie that we loved about the date that President Obama and Michelle had. That was done by a white kid. He did a beautiful job.
Southside with you.
Yeah, that movie just evaporates beautifully.
How many people went to see
Nobody know
it?
if he was white or black. Nobody knows
Exactly. That's my point.
Nobody has any idea.
In fact, that's what Baba Dick was saying. You know that because you're in the business. But how many people, when they go see a movie, they focus on the director?
No, not many.
But the only time they'll jump on the director, if like Spike will say, well, how many times the N-word was in Tarantino's movie? He's jumping on Tarantino. Then Tarantino's name becomes an issue. But God bless him, when Baba Dick said he saw the movie 46 times, Django, well, we coming from the same point where that's one of my favorite films too. And look who did it.
Yeah.
Tarantino. Mm-hmm. And both of you guys I've argued with, when it comes to coonery and buffoonery, I know a whole lot of people are going to get upset with me, but to me, one of the biggest guys making a lot of coonery and buffoonery is Spike Lee. Because do the right thing. I'm going to say it. Do the right thing. If you watch that movie, every damn man in that black man in that movie was negative. Maybe the only positive black man you have in that film is Sam Jackson's character. And that upset me to no end. The women in there are positive. Spike has always been a coon in his movies. He's Mookie, looking like a little coon, a little imp. When he did Malcolm X, he was walking around with the zoot suit looking stupid. When he did School Days, he was a little buffoon. So give me a break.
Well, my only thing on Do the Right Thing, it's classic, and as we go into from 1989, you can look back at that movie and you can see that the same conflicts that we're having with police today existed. So there's a representation of the way. I don't think there was a more on time movie with black people before Do the Right Thing.
No, I agree with you. He knows that I like Spike's movies. I don't like all of them, but I like Do the Right Thing. I thought capturing a moment in time, because there was nothing in there that wasn't true. That's the only thing that wasn't true was Sam Jackson's character. You got narrating a radio station, narrating it. That's just a dramatic trick. But I liked the movie, Do the Right Thing. I thought it illustrated that hot day and the summer and what was going on and the racialness of and the police thing and what's going on. The whole thing with Danny Aiello's character. Originally it was going to be Robert De Niro. And Danny Aiello fought with Spike about some of that and got his way. And there was some scenes in there I thought were really good. So I like that. In School Days, I like that. I like.
But to circle back, I can see Charles is heated. Mm-hmm. Keep some of this energy going in the room. So I'll throw it out as But who's gets to tell the story? Whose right is it to tell the story? Like I think I'm less hurt by the fact that Tupac didn't come out as well, but it was black owned. I don't know who wrote it, but black directed, black produced. Whereas when I go see Nina Simone, and I know it's black producers, black actors, but white writer, white director, and this is somebody who's very symbolic to a lot of the struggle that we're going through, and it's complete travesty. It hurts more to think that, so that's, I'm more forgiving of a fail on Tupac than I am about the way.
That liked Nina Simone. My wife didn't like it. I didn't see it, but she didn't like it. A lot of people. One of the things, a problem that there was an issue taken out why Zoe Saldana and not maybe somebody like Indy Ari who looks like Nina Simone, which I think is a legitimate argument. And then, but you realize they went with Zoe Saldana because they wanted to go with an actress who has a name. I don't know about box office, but
it's box office. I mean, like Zoe, even though she hasn't really starred in anything, if you look at her numbers, she was in Avatar, which is one of the highest-grossing movies ever. Yeah. And although you never saw her face, she's on that list. Sam Jackson gets the same kind of push because he's got small parts in Star Wars, so it pushes your name up real high. And then
no, I understood. I understand. If you know Hollywood, Hollywood, I'm sure when they're doing the Nina Simone story, they sat around and looking for a name rather than looking for a performer. And Indy Ari, like I said, looks a lot like.
But wasn't this Zoe Saldana's project to begin with? Something she wanted to do?
No, it's Cynthia Mort. She was she kind of came in through Jodie Foster. They were
Egg Productions.
Yeah, they came. They were, I guess, partners in something at one point, and then this was going to be her directorial debut, and it was her passion to do it. And I've never talked to Cynthia Mort. I don't know her feelings about it, but just compromised from off the bat, budget wise, casting wise, a lot of things. But you can't. We've talked about this before. I don't necessarily fault any actor who believes they can play anything. I love the story of when Spike Lee went to the British actor. I'll come up with his name. He said, hey, I want to do the Joe Louis story, and the white guy, British guy, he said, well, let me play Joe Louis. And Spike walked off. It's like, well, you need to have those cojones to believe you can play anybody. He wanted him to play Schmeling, and he said, no, let me play Joe Louis. So, for Zoe to think that she could get away being Dominican and stuff, and play Nina Simone, and she does her own singing and all that stuff, I give her all the credit in the world if I don't have to pay for it. Like if it's a play at a school thing, then do your thing. But but the fact that this is going to exist, for eternity as the representation of. So, well, no one's going to make another Nina Simone movie fiction anytime soon, because this one beat it to the punch the same way. It's very unlikely we're going to see another Martin Luther King movie after Selma. So the people first out the gate generally dictate, the success or failure of it, if there's going to be more.
I disagree with you. I think that somebody along the line will do another Dr. Martin Luther King movie, because his life, you can parcel his life. You can go somewhere else where he's a younger man before he becomes, quote, Dr. Martin Luther King. I mean, there's things, or you could pick up the day, I was telling my brother here, we were talking about, there was a famous TV show called You Are There. Remember that? Well, why not do a You Are There, do a movie, do it like that, with the day he was assassinated, what went on. And You Are There, take the camera. The one thing I liked about that Russian movie, Henry, was how they put you right there. So that's what You Are There used to, well, didn't do it that way, but do that scene as if it's done almost like a newsreel, or You Are There. So I think somebody will finally attack. It's according to how you attack. They write love songs, and nobody said, well, there's one love song written, that's it. No, it's according to how you attack it. Same thing with a movie. It's according to how you attack a movie, I think. In your case, the script, the preparation, how the director, what he sees, or what somebody says, there's that moment right there.
But there's also, now Steven Spielberg owns the life rights to Martin Luther King in the speeches. But so it's likely, he has like 50 projects going at any given time. So it's possible that could happen. But I think Hollywood, with black stories, either there's too many of them, or if a movie isn't a hit, they'll feel like, that idea's been exhausted, and they won't make any more like that.
Yeah, I disagree. I just think that if somebody can find a way, I always tell Chuck, there's Thanksgiving dinner, always the same, but it's according to how you serve it. That people come, you can change up, you can switch up on it. And I think that's true with movies. You can, there have been multiple movies about other people. There have been multiple stories told about one person, and I think it's according to once again, where you attack. Dr. Martin Luther King, there's certain characters that are so enormous, there's so much you can do. There's so much.
So am I wrong to feel like our stories, there can only be one rendition of a Marvin Gaye story or a Ray Charles story, and that'll be the definitive one, and then if it doesn't come out well, then that affects my whole feeling inside of did they represent us right?
Okay. Now, can there be one Marvin Gaye story? No. There's a great story. I always.
Did you know Marvin Gaye?
I met him, but I didn't know him. But the thing about, there's a great story I wanted to do with Marvin Gaye, and it has nothing to do. It has to do with his relationship with Tammy Terrell. A lot of people don't know that story. That is a great story. That's a great love story. And Marvin, probably the only woman that he really ever loved, and she died very young.
Fell out in his arms.
Yeah, and so
collapsed on stage in his arms.
Yeah, she had brain tumor.
But Marvin told you some interesting things, right?
That he was talking about. When I went to Marvin's house in Detroit. I went to school with this kid who kept saying he knew Marvin Gaye. We said, get out of my room, man. So one day, one of the guys who lived in Detroit, we're driving around Outer Drive, and we go around, and there's a guy that was telling us, hey, he's throwing football with Marvin Gaye. We pull the car over and go in there and sit down and hang out with Marvin Gaye. We play football with him. He was trying out for the Detroit Lions then. And he took us downstairs, and that album was going on. And he was, at that time, he was one of the last guys to stay in Detroit because he hated Berry Gordy.
Mm-hmm.
And he was staying there, and he took us downstairs, and I told him how much we loved that album, and we were talking to him, and he was telling us how the album came up and his dreams, and he was talking to it, and he said he ain't going out to Los Angeles because he didn't like, him and Berry was on the outs and all. I mean,
there's a story right there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And we're sitting there just talking to him, man, and he's playing the piano, man. He's giving us cold drinks, because we were football players. You guys want some football? And this guy named Nash called. We had to treat him like, yeah, Nash, way to go, man. Because he knew Marvin Gaye, And so, therefore, I'm sitting in Marvin's house on Outer Drive, a place called Outer Drive. It's where all Motown people lived. You see the little mansion houses. They were all smoky at the time, but they had left. He was the only one still there, Marv, and he only stayed because he was just being adamant.
Right.
You know.
Well, there's lots of stories to be told. Plenty of stories about black folks.
Yeah.
So, that leads into another thing in terms of like when Tupac did really well last weekend, they were like, wow, you know, this exceeded our expectation. This exceeded our expectations, and a lot of articles went out saying like it's hard for Hollywood to predict the success of blackness and black representation in film. And it seems like in the last, I'd say, 2 to 3 years, some of the more and some of it's a reaction to the white Oscar so white, but it seems like we're being exposed not only to more black stories in film and in TV and Netflix and all that, but also it's revealing a lot of things that we haven't seen before. Like either like in Get Out, it's a horror film, but it's told from a black perspective, or even like a Hidden Figures, which is like, wow, nobody knew this story even existed.
That's a biopic. Yeah, nobody even knew it existed. Hidden Figures. Director, white, right? Okay, you know.
But look at
Pharrell is the guy responsible for that. Pharrell Williams.
Yeah, but not only that, we raised the issue about 42 with Branch Rickey, but what they do, as I call with the dilution solution, with Hidden Figures, you have the Branch Rickey figure is Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
You know, because they have to find a way to commercialize these films. Because one thing that I learned a long time ago, and I'm sorry I cut you off, B, but the thing is, the sad thing about why we don't get the kind of films we want, I read somewhere where someone said if you want good work, you need good audiences. If we want better representation of us, and someone's attempting to do that, and we're not supporting that, that's the end of that.
Yeah. There's a part, you know, content of our characters, Shelby Steele, okay, what Dr. Martin Luther King said. There's a problem with the content of our character, not just in, you know, socially and educationally, but also involving in the arts. You know, what we support and what we won't support. And then, like my brother's saying, you know, if you want to see, if you go out, Hollywood has one thing in mind. You make money, they'll make it. They'll do it. You don't make any money, they're backing out. Hollywood is very horrorish, okay? They're about making money, and then they do. They want to make money. They're not in business. They're not in the charity business. It's about making money. So if a movie makes money, you know, I'd probably say when Straight Outta Compton did well, this is pretty why that Tupac movie said, okay, let's go get that Tupac, put it out there. While Straight Outta Compton is still on people's minds. See what I'm saying? Rushing something out instead of them saying, well, let's work on it. And I'm sure Singleton's a writer. So a lot of people don't realize he's a writer first, then a director. Sometimes that's very important, you know. And I think when you have that combination of guys, he saw something that wasn't quite right as a writer. Not as a director, as a writer. Benny Boom came off of videos, I believe, right?
Well, he replaced Singleton, yes.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. So you're bringing in a guy who's saying, oh, my chin here, we're going to get, and I'm sure he wanted to make the best of what he had. And probably did not give him the time. He made it sort of the same thing Singleton saw, but he said, I got to keep this gig. This is my shot, I got to take it, and you see what I'm saying? So sometimes that's the problem. But you got to support these films. You know, I worked with Sam Goldwyn Jr. I would tell Chuck this story all the time. Remember To Sleep with Anger?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sam Goldwyn Jr. loved Franklin and I because we did favors for him and what have you. And that's how we got started polishing scripts. And Sam Goldwyn Jr. loved this movie, To Sleep with Anger. Okay? And he sits there and he says, he loved the movie so much that he was willing, and he asked us, what am I going to do? He said, I'm going to get buses together. I'm going to go down to Atlanta and take the people from the churches to go see the movie because they were complaining about there ain't nothing I want to see. At that time, you had a lot of state property movies, you know, gangster rap movies. They didn't want to see that. And he said, I'm going to take that and show them that there's a movie that they can come see with a decent story and to tell the story and whatnot. And people, they went and oh, this is great. We love this. Is fair. They loved it, but Nope.
Well,
Yep.
that folds into another point. So, you know, you got to attract the masses,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So one way to do it is by the dilution solution, as you call it, like giving, as much as I would love to see, because I believe that film is at least one person's artistic vision, just a pure representation of what it's like to be black in this culture, in America, in the diaspora, in the English-speaking world, and a lot of times those things are compromised because the movies are so cost-intensive. So I don't know how often we get those things, and then when we do, like To Sleep with Anger or Get on the Bus or Spook Who Sat by the Door.
I love Get on the Bus.
We don't.
Spike's one of his best ever, written by Reggie Blythewood, but a good movie, a great movie. It didn't do the box office it did deserve.
Yeah, when you tell a story with just all black folks, you are automatically, in some ways, disinviting a big chunk of your audience not to come, because they want to see themselves in the story too. They don't have the same double consciousness that black people are conditioned with, where we go see a Tom Cruise movie and we imagine we're Tom Cruise, or we go to see, I'm trying to think of a woman character, we imagine we're the hero, like from the day that we're taught to read, like we're reading Huckleberry Finn as if we're Huckleberry Finn. So we translate that to movies, whereas I don't think white folks have that reverse engineering where they can look at a black character, like unless it's a Wesley Snipes, and really, or an action star, and really imagine themselves as being in those situations.
But I think with these new white millennials, whatever you want to call them, and the millennials, look how they absorbed rap. All of them wanted to be Tupac or Biggie. Seriously, rap. When that woman from the NAACP had Warner Brothers disavow themselves from, was it Death Row Records, whatever it was, Interscope.
See Dolores Tucker.
Right. 85% of the rap music that was bought by young white, mostly males. When I saw that number, I couldn't believe it. White males. They are sitting there, so they do look at blacks differently than, say, their mothers and fathers. So there's a difference. So there is a way. If you just open it up and give it a chance, we got to realize we are. America's a bit retarded in a lot of ways. Look how long it took for us to put condom ads on television. The rest of the world were doing it 25, 50 years ago. We can't put no condom ads on TV. You know what I'm saying? This is what we do, and it's sometimes in that,
Right. So we're in a growth. The world certainly is changing more than ever, in good ways and bad ways.
And
so
we're the country that sells sex more than probably anybody else.
Yeah.
And we want to know why we sell sex, and our commercials always have
Sex
been
and
about
violence.
sex and violence.
Yeah.
Right, and yet and still we don't want to put certain things on, so we're retarded in that way. Always the term I use about America is being duplicitous.
Duplicitous.
And very much duplicitous about certain things.